Hi, I'm Evelyn Linwood. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm not doing one of my regular writing vlogs. I wanted to instead talk to you about whether or not indie or self-publication is for you. And a little bit about why neither traditional nor indie should be a fallback. Okay. So in order to do that, I will go over kind of how trad works, how indie works, and sort of the pros and cons of indie writing. I've not been through traditional publications, so I don't want to go too in-depth there. There's a lot of authors who already have content like that out. A great one, if you want to learn more about traditional publication, is Alexa Donne's YouTube channel. I hope I said her name right. I'm sorry. Okay, so for how trad works, there are a few short steps, well, short on paper, long in real life. You write your book, and okay, I'm going to approach both of these as if you've never published. So you write your book. That's the same for both pathways. You self-edit as much as you can, as much as you're able. You can use free services such as beta reader, well, not services, but you can get your friends to beta read. You can have critique partners. You may want to be a little bit choosy with beta readers just because if they're not your target audience, they might give you feedback that's like, well, of course you didn't like my fantasy novel. You read, I don't know, dystopian, and I wrote something kind of cozy. It's not. So you want to be discerning in who you're choosing for beta readers. Critique partners is a little bit different because you're kind of expecting other writers to have that mindset where this might not be, I'm not necessarily the target audience, but I can sort of put myself in the mindset of readers. Although you do still want to be aware of like people's reading preferences and how experienced are they giving critique? How familiar are they with the expectations of the readers of that genre? So have they read that genre even if it's not their favorite? And then here's where the two paths diverge. So if you are trying to seek traditional publication, do not hire any editors. Let me say that again. If you are seeking traditional publication, do not hire anyone. Money does not leave the author's hands. Okay? Okay. Now, there is an argument to be made, a tiny, minuscule exception. If it is there's two actually. If it is your first book and you lack confidence, but not money, you can hire a developmental editor or perhaps get a manuscript critique done so that you can like learn off of having an editor look at your book. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I think that honestly the best way to learn writing is to write books. You learn so much. Like your first book, if you're actually genuinely trying to get your first book published, almost guarantee you are rewriting that thing. I've rewritten the book that I originally intended to be my first book. I have rewritten twice, and now I'm doing kind of a third. Draft 4 is almost a rewrite, but like not really. So yeah, you'll be rewriting. I think on average people publish like their fourth book as their first book. So be aware of that. There is a learning curve. We're all very attached to that first wonderful idea that we had. Maybe we had it back when we were kids. Everyone is very attached to their first book. Okay. But that is like the one exception if you're using it as a learning experience, but just know that that is cutting into what is probably going to be very slim profits, if you have any. Like, you may have just been like, nope, no more profits because I used them on an editor. Okay. The other exception I can see is if you speak English as a second language. Sometimes you can learn a lot from getting a copy edit done. It's not a choice that I would recommend, but it is one that I can understand. Okay? So I wouldn't say do that. Genuinely, if English does not have to be your first language to traditionally publish, you can have, like, if you have solid writing and a solid story, you can get an agent and then they can help you with the tiny little, if you have like little mistakes due to it being a second language, that is not prohibitive from what I understand. Again, I'm not in the trad world, so grain of salt. So we're going to stick to trad now since we have diverged. Okay. You do not hire anyone unless those two very tiny exceptions, and even then I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. And then your next step is to write a query letter, and absolutely you should shop this around. You can hire someone to help you with a query letter. Personally, I wouldn't, because I don't think that you want the query letter to be in your voice. And I think a lot of the help is just people who are trying to, earn money on the side to support their writing. They haven't necessarily made it yet. Some of them have. Sometimes it's like actual agents helping people write and whatever. I'm not saying it's everyone. I'm just saying it's hard to find good help with that. Okay, so you write your query letter. You look up agents through whatever means. Again, I'm not in trad world. It appealed to me when I was younger because I didn't know about indie, but it was not that hard of a decision for me. So, my trad research is limited. But you find agents, you send in your query letter. Listen to me. This is important. The agents will have instructions for how they receive query letters. Follow the instructions. Personalize the letter. Like, use the agent's name. Mention why you think it would work for them. Don't send out generic stuff through the wrong channels. You can follow instructions. You're adults. I get you can do it. So because if you follow instructions, you'll be much more likely to find an agent. So once you get your agent, there will be the agent will either call or email or however they handle it. They will say that they're interested in it. You can still reject them. But typically I think there's an interview process, or you have a phone call or something. And then you should also send out to people that you have already queried. If you are receiving an agent's interest, it is considered courtesy to let them know so that they can express their own interest, so that you can, it's just courtesy. And then you have more choices sometimes. If you tell an agent that someone else has already responded, maybe it's sitting at the bottom of their pile, it moves up to the top, they look at it, oh, it's the best thing ever, they want you. So then you've got a couple of choices. So after you sign with an agent, which I think there's a contract involved, the standard, I believe last I heard, was 15%. Do not give agents money. They don't take money from authors. That is a scam. So an agent helps you shop your book around to various publishers. An editor at the publisher wants the book. So then you sign a contract with them. And at that point, your agent gets 15% of whatever the contract is. That's, I think, the standard. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room for that. If you have an agent who's wanting more than that, unless it's changed, do your own research, double check. Again, I'm not in the trad world. If you're looking for like information about trad publishing, I recommend Alexa Dunn's YouTube channel. I watched her a lot when I was trying to come to my own decision. And she has a very kind of balanced viewpoint, but definitely well informed about traditional publishing, whereas I'm not. Okay, so once you've signed, then the publishing house will be paying for editors, covers, etc. Money should not leave your hands before the date that you are published. If you are signing with an agent or a publishing house that wants you to pay them, that's a scam. Don't do it. These things pop up and they trick people and they will like take your intellectual property away from you. Don't do it. Don't fall for the scams. Money does not leave your hands. There's a like industry standard fee that should not wiggle. You can even find out like what other books agents have represented so that you know that they're legitimate. Okay? Do your research. Don't be sending to random people. Send to agents you think you will match with. You might have to send a lot. You might have to send a lot. Your first book might not get accepted. If you want to be traditionally published, that is a thing that happens. You can shelve it. You can query the next one. Maybe after that gets picked up, they'll be interested in your previous book. It's a thing. You know, traditional publication doesn't come with a lot of control. Okay, back to indie. Once you have done your self-edits, you pay people. Now, it depends, okay? Different indies have A, different standards, and B, different budgets. And the budgets is a big one. And C, different levels of experience and expertise. So, say you're a debuting indie author who has a background in editing. I'm going to give you advice that I did not follow because of my minuscule budget. Hire an editor anyway, okay? If you can at all do it, if it fits in the budget, the two most important things are your cover and your editing. You need your book to be professional. I know some of you might just have an idea in your head and you want it out in the world. That's fine. I'm talking to people who want this to be a career. You need good edits and you need a good cover that fits your genre. And this is what you need. Okay? Those are the two big things. Everything else is bonus. Okay. So those are sort of, after you hire people, get your cover. You need to be fully edited. You can buy formatting software and format your own book. It's relatively simple, or you can hire someone to do that if you really want. But if you're going to be doing a whole bunch of books, I would actually recommend to just buy your own software. Figure it out. I'm a bit of a Luddite myself. I married a tech guy and oh, that poor man. Anyway, I'm not good at tech. I've used both Atticus and Vellum. Those are the two most common softwares that I see, although I have a video about it. There's other options. I know a lot of people use other options. So after you've edited, formatted, hired a cover designer, hire them before you think you need them, because there is like, making a cover takes time. Yeah. And also they might not have room in their schedule. So you want to hire before you think you need to. I got lucky. I had a cover designer who was able to fit me in within I think 3 or 4 months. It was pretty quick. But not everyone can, and it kind of just depends. Okay, so after you have all that stuff, you have your final product. You have a book. an EPUB or a PDF. Then you have to decide how you're going to distribute it. You can do that through like the big vendors like Amazon KDP, Apple, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Google Play. If you're doing Google Play, do it early because Google Play is a little bit, or not Google Play, Google Books. They are a little bit frustrating and or finicky. They take time to approve your vendor account, so you have to do it ahead of time. And how far ahead of time is up to you, but I do think, like, just do it a couple months ahead and you'll feel better anyway, because then you won't have to stress about it. So you'll need to do that. You probably want to file a copyright. It is not technically a requirement because you automatically have a copyright because came out of your head, it's your IP, legally speaking. But that is very difficult to defend and prove without like an actual copyright, so I recommend filing for the copyright. You may or may not want ISBNs. It all depends on like your preference about catalogs and stuff, and it gets into the weeds there, but it's on you and you have to do research about it. And basically there is a big fat research step when it comes to indie publication. You have to research copyright law. Do you want to start a business so that you can publish under a publisher? That's what I did. I started Night Sky Publishing. My book says Night Sky Publishing on it. But it's just me. It's my, it's my LLC. I own it. I do editing services through it. I publish books through it. That's mine. So the big research step and legal mumbo jumbo, which you can see probably my physical reaction to remembering reading that stuff. And then research on vendors. If you don't want to, first off, there's kind of two paths. There's wide or basically KDP, or wide, or what do they call it? KU. So you can put your book in KU. It can be taken out if it gets pirated. I mean, I haven't heard of anyone actually losing their account, but your book can be taken from KU. And it's possible that you can lose your account. I don't know. I think that's like one of the horror stories that doesn't really happen, but it can. But yeah. So because of the exclusivity deal with Kindle Unlimited, where only your ebook is only available on Amazon, they consider getting pirated. Oh, that's not exclusive. So make of that what you will. And then you'll have to do like your own ARCs, which is advanced reader copies. So essentially, I don't want to get like too into it. Basically, you're responsible for everything. Which brings me to the pros and cons list I'm not going to do one for trad because kind of if you flip it, it's the pros and cons for trad anyway. Okay, so the pros for, I'll just kind of go back and forth. One pro for indie is that you have budgetary freedom, so you can kind of set the budget for your book. If you go traditionally publish, maybe your book gets accepted and maybe it's like the big book that they're pushing, but they only really push a couple books. There are way more books published than are pushed, so you might have one, I think they refer to it as tiers or something, but like say you have the B book instead of the A book. Maybe you'll get some marketing, maybe you'll get some help, but maybe you won't. So with indie, you have budgetary freedom, and also you have the freedom to circle back around, and when you have more money, put more into it, marketing wise and such. Because trad books, like, there's only so much time they're on the shelf. And it's kind of true for indie, but also kind of not. Indie books have more of an evergreen to them because just the way that indie versus trad are marketed. But along with the budgetary freedom comes upfront costs, and that is a massive con. Honestly, it can be a deal breaker. Like, I thought that I was going to get my book out there for so little money. I can't remember what my actual budget wound up being, but it was at least measured in hundreds. I think it might have been over 1,000, depending if you count the business or I have it written down somewhere. But yeah, it was expensive. It was more expensive than I thought it would be. I was like, oh, I'm going to cut all these corners and not spend money, but then little things come up. And if you have the money for it, it is wonderful. But you have to understand that you're not going to get that money back for a while, if ever. If you're pouring your heart into an indie career, there's a chance that it just altogether fails. But there's also a chance that you can... a fairly decent chance, to be honest. I think most indies is the thing that separates indies who are making money versus indies who aren't is that they give up. Okay. So, the structure, this is one of the main differences between trad and indie. So, upfront costs in indie, no upfront costs in trad. It takes a while to make your money back, but you have a pretty good shot at it versus you sign a deal, they give you kind of a advance on your royalties. And if you earn out the advance, you get more, but generally speaking, most people don't. So kind of trad, you get it more in a chunk. Although, from what I hear, it's actually broken into several chunks and takes a long time to get, but I don't know the details of that. With indie, you can do like direct sales. I know some people do like book fairs type stuff. I have my book in a couple of indie stores, which is fun. And people say you can't get it in a library, but it's in my library. I think it's more like you need a personal connection. It's not going to be in every library. Okay. The next thing that's really big with indie is you have complete marketing freedom. So this is one of those things that can either be a pro or a con, depending on your personal attitude. I find it exciting most of the time, but sometimes it's just plain overwhelming. Like, you have to do all this market research, just kind of research into how selling works, period, how to do sales, how to do ads. I haven't quite figured those out, to be honest. Maybe you're marketing through social media. I do that. Maybe you have a YouTube channel. Although this isn't really for selling books. This is just kind of talking about writing. Yeah, but the freedom is great if you want it. Some people don't. They just want to write. So that is one thing where it's like... Although I have heard that a lot of trad people are finding that they have to do a lot of their own marketing these days, so this is maybe less relevant than it used to be. The next one is creative freedom, which I consider purely a pro. I know some people will maybe say that, like, oh, there's no gatekeeper, so how do you know if it's good? But if you're using beta readers and critique partners and all that, you're going to know. I mean, you have a sense when you're writing a book, oh, this is so good, or will people really like this? And some of that can be anxiety, but some of that is just an instinct, oh, something's wrong, I need to fix it. But again, some of it can be anxiety and inexperience. You learn over time which is which. I haven't completely learned. I'm still new. So yes. Creative freedom is a big deal. One of the things that it applies to the most is probably series. So if you're someone, like, you want to write series for sure, you might want to seriously consider indie. But there will be a lot of different work to it than just writing. But so series in indie, you can just write a series and sell it, and it's actually one of the best ways to market your backlist is to write a new book in the same series, and then people will buy book 1 through whatever. But if you are doing trad, kind of the way to get into series is to write a standalone with series potential, which you might never get to write the series. And by doing trad, you have you've sold your IP. So you can't go off, you can't write a standalone and traditionally publish it. So if you traditionally publish a book, you cannot then say they don't want the sequel. You can't go and self-publish the sequel. Because that is not your intellectual property. The characters, the world, the story, that's not yours. You don't own it. You sold it. And maybe they want the sequel. There's a lot of traditionally published series. But if that is your goal, I would say proceed with caution. If you want to be traditionally published and write sequel series, you might not get to do both. It's just the nature of the game. So that is one of the biggest aspects of creative freedom. As an indie, I can choose to do series. I can choose to do standalones. My debut duology, I have 1 book out right now. I'm going to write a 2nd book, and then I'm starting a different series. But down the line, I do have an idea for a 2nd series in the same world. If I want to do that, I can circle back around and do it. You do not have that freedom in traditional publishing. Okay. And that's kind of the IP ownership thing, which I would consider a massive pro for self-publishing. I think a lot of times when you sign a deal with a publishing house, like, they might also buy your movie rights. So if your book took off massively somehow, you were just one of the lucky ones, you might not see as much from that. I don't know how that works. That's just something to look into. Again, my trad research stopped early, so I can't help with that. I don't know if that is even true. Like, just make sure you know how the movie rights work, how the foreign rights work, how the audiobook rights work. Make sure that you understand what you're getting into. Okay. The other thing, which this is one that really depends on your disposition. So as an indie, you will have complete control of your timeline on, like, publishing. Not complete, because you still have to wait around for your cover unless you're doing your own covers, which I wouldn't recommend unless you're truly a cover design expert. It doesn't go well for most people to do their own. But you have control of your publishing schedule other than where you're relying on other people for like cover, editing, critique partners. But along with that, readers of indie do tend to expect a faster timeline. So take, for instance, The King Killer Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. I read the first book so long ago. So long. And I read the second book so very long ago. I've reread them both several times. The second book, I wouldn't let children read, and I skipped massive chunks for reasons. It's explicit. But the story, the characters, it's a book I picked it as an example for a reason. Patrick Rothfuss has not finished The Doors of Stone, which is the third book. It has been probably more than a decade. I didn't check the date. If that third book ever comes out, I'm totally going to read it. You get into books, and then I was a primarily traditionally published reader. So I was kind of taught to expect that. Even between like the Harry Potter books, there were a couple of years between each one, weren't there? I know the fourth book came out. There's probably 6 years between 4 and 6. So yeah. I can't remember when the fifth book came out, oddly enough. But so there is a certain pressure in the indie world to write a heck of a lot faster than that. And you don't have to exactly, but it's a lot more effective, especially depending on your genre, to be a faster writer. So there is pressure there. I'm not a particularly fast writer, and I don't know how long it takes me to write a book. Because I tend to work on multiple projects at once, I have like several that are started. And I have the one that's published, and then I have 2 that I'm focused on. I can't just work on one project. I know everyone says, just work on one. You'll get it done so much faster. No, I won't, because I'll get bored and stop. Even right now, I'm kind of having trouble just doing 2. I might need to inject a third one in. But the timeline thing is a big deal. It's wonderful to control your timeline. Like, a lot of indies will, especially I think like romance, they will write like a Christmas book and then let it out around Christmas time. And that's great. That's great marketing. Holiday books. So that is one aspect, but it's kind of counteracted by the pressure to write quickly. Which this is probably a good time to talk about the AI. Personally, I am extremely anti-generative AI. Technically, indie authors can get away with it. You can make money on AI. You can't file a copyright because you done stole that. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. You stole it. Anyway, people can do AI-generated books. They can publish them. They can make money off of them, technically. You have to, like, market. I don't know how long that will be a thing, depending how lots of, like, legal stuff pans out. However, if you're going trad, you probably don't want to do that because I don't know that the companies will be accepting of that because it is a risk because they can't copyright it. So someone else can, like, sell the same thing. They can take the book and sell it also because it's not yours in the first place. Yeah. I shouldn't have brought up AI. It makes me mad. Okay, moving on. I've already kind of discussed royalty structure, but the main, honestly, like the thing that is the difference between trad and indie, the real difference, like not the list of things. When you're indie, everything is you. You are in charge of timelines, budgets, editing, like quality assurance. You need to make sure your formatting is fine. You need to make sure that when customers are, like, say you have print copies, if you want customers to be happy, you need to like respond if they have issues, like misprints and stuff. Yeah. So everything is you. You're your marketing team, you're your editing team, you're your writing team. If you're trad, you're just the writer. Maybe the marketer, depending on how much help you're getting. So this can be a big pro. I consider it a pro. I love the flexibility. It makes me excited. I see myself building up a career in indie publication over, the next 10, 20 years. I'm very happy. I'm very excited. Some people would sit in the same chair, in the same exact situation, and instead of feeling excited, they would feel horribly overwhelmed and anxious. And some days honestly, some days I feel that way too. But you need to know yourself. Which would you feel sitting in a chair? Say you just published a book. You're working on a sequel, or even if you haven't published yet and you're just trying to get it out there, are you going to feel excited or overwhelmed? Now, I'm not saying make your decisions based on emotions, because emotions are big fat liars. Truly they are. Often they are. But if this is going to be like how your life is structured, not your life. Obviously, there's other aspects to life. There's family. There's kids. Hope if you're lucky enough. There is hobbies. There's whatever else there is. There's more to life than what you're doing for your career. But you still want your career not to make you miserable. So, pros and cons. It's the control. Yeah. So the other thing that I didn't mention, and which is tied to the royalty structure and the timeline thing, is that depending who you ask, you might hear that indies make more money or that trad make more money. Indies make a higher percentage of their royalty rate. That's true. Trad tends to sell more copies, so it kind of depends on how much you're publishing, like how many books you publish, and what you put into them, like marketing, the quality of the product you're putting out. So it kind of depends on your publishing speed and or how many books you have in your backlist, your quality of the product you're putting out. And I know it's your art, it's not a product, but it is. You're trying to make money off it. So it depends on the quality, the marketing, etc., how many copies an indie will sell. Not to mention luck. There is a luck factor. There's no point denying it. There is a luck factor. So sometimes indies make more money than trad. Most trad authors, it is an incredibly small minority of trad authors who quit their day job and don't regret it. Okay? Most trad authors are writing on the side. And if that's for you, Wonderful. Do it. I'm so happy for you that you found this thing, that you want to write books on the side, write one like every few years, have it published. Great. I'm very truly happy for you. If that fits you, wonderful. Trad is for you. If you want to be a career author, where that's the only thing you're doing, indie might actually be a more viable route. There's more onus on you. There's a lot of other moving pieces. And some indies do like editing and stuff for other people, which I wouldn't recommend doing unless it's an actual expertise and you've had courses and know what you're doing. But indie, a few years into it, 5 to 10 books into it, you can actually be making like an income. You might not be rich from it. I mean, there are people who get rich publishing, but it's probably not going to be you. But you can earn a solid income. So, yeah, those are the kind of the differences. I know I got a little bit rambly. I took notes, but I'm bad at following notes because I have new ideas while I'm talking. But either way, one of these may have sounded absolutely horrifying to you, or both may have sounded great. If both sound great to you, you may actually want to look into, some people call it hybrid publishing, but be careful because that also means like basically a vanity press. So when you're doing your research, it'll be kind of difficult. You might need to be discerning in your research so that you're not looking up vanity presses. But you can do some books self-published, some trad. That is viable if you just really are like, it may be down to which project you want to do which with. So those are the main differences. Oh, no, that's what I was saying. You don't want to have, like, you don't want to try and be trad and then do indie as a backup because your book's not accepted. The thing to do if your book is not accepted is just to keep writing more books and try again with a different book. And I know that sucks, but I would not recommend to someone who wants to be traditionally published to become indie published. First off, if you do that, that book will never be traditionally published. Like, yeah, there's exceptions where a book truly takes off, but those are so rare. Like, that is not, it's so rare that it should not be in your mind as a thing. People who traditionally publish are selling the first rights of publication. So do not do indie and think you can trad publish later. You can. People get this piece of advice confused because people will say that and they're like, oh, if I self-publish, I can never be a traditionally published author. No, you can't publish that book. Now, they may want you to use like a pen name if they're not happy with your sales. You don't have to mention it at all, to be honest. Well, you should mention it eventually, but you don't have to mention it like in your query letter. If you self-published and didn't do well, I wouldn't mention it. But they're buying first rights of publication. So if you sell, like you have a book named Project Red and you publish that one, great. You've self-published Project Red. You cannot traditionally publish Project Red because you've already first published it. You have another project called Project Green. Project Green, you think, what if I trad publish that? You can do that because you haven't done the first publication. Okay, so that's the difference. You can take your second book even if you've published your first book. You can't take the first book around after already having published it. So I think that's kind of all I have to say on this topic. If you have questions, by all means, share them below. There are a lot of pros to trad that I did not go over. I'm sure that My trad people, if you're here in the comments, please share some below. I'm very happy for people to share. And indie is not for everyone. Like, this is definitely a decision. And it is hard to make back your money, and you have to be patient. You have to be so patient. But obviously I chose indie, so I thought these sound good to me. Yeah, so that is, yeah, that's that. Thank you for watching. If you've watched this far, if you made it to the end, will you put like a little balloon emoji down below? Because I want to know who's actually watching my videos all the way to the end. Thank you.